everyone. I'm Melvin. I'm the head of portfolio growth at Signum. So we'll be doing a founders feature every now and then. So today we are bringing you Derek from Moonbeam. Hi, Derek.
Hi, thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, I mean it's our pleasure, right? So I mean the reason why we wanted to interview you because there's a lot of things ongoing in the crypto scene right now, and I think it'll be interesting for us to know where Moonbeam is, and also we come out a few questions, some fun questions, not exactly tough questions. We hope that the audience, the readers will actually get to enjoy your insights. So probably
Sure.
we can actually start by doing the questions, deep dive into questions.
Yeah,
I'll just probably start off we like to start off by commenting on the current state of the crypto industry right now.
yeah. Obviously, it's much changed from, let's say, 6 months ago, even. But honestly, I think these bear markets are, represent great opportunities. I mean, for one, when you're building something, it's a time. There's a lot less distractions, right? So, frankly, some of the worst parts of crypto get washed out, right? So a lot of those, those kinds of things are gone. And yeah, you have, I think, some more time to really kind of be a little bit more thoughtful, to think, to strategize. It's not this feeling of, when you're in the middle of the bull, it's just like every day you're kind of behind and you're just trying to not, stay kind of stay on top of everything. In the bear is like when you can be more thoughtful and really honestly, that's where the real building takes place. That's where the positioning takes place, and the moves that happen in the bear are what set up projects for success when the next bull comes. So I think, yeah, it represents a great opportunity. I think is for, especially for a team that's building something, because you can really, this is like the time to get things done.
So I don't want to be like tricky, right? But I recently saw, right. So in bear market you guys are building. So what happened to the bull market? Aren't you guys building?
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
true. So it's not that we're not building in the bull, but I would say that. So I'll give you. I mean, and we'll talk about this later. Like we've definitely spent, had more time to think and strategize, and so I think we have like a much clearer picture of what our strategy is. The kinds of, we're about to like launch even like a new
Mm.
messaging, a new website that reflects like our current thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't know that that kind of thinking is hard to do when you're in the middle of the bull. It's even hard to understand like what you know what's real and what's not real, right? Because there's so many things happening and there's so many.
I guess it's
You know,
like there's less noise in the market, lah, right?
that's right.
Less
That's right.
distraction, less
I,
noise,
but
more
it is this.
peaceful, lah.
It's this noise thing where like it's hard to even understand what the right strategy is
Mm,
when there's just all this like it's hard to see the signals, right? So I
mm,
think it's much clearer to us now
mm-hmm.
what it is that where the bets are, like we know what the right bets are to make.
Okay, I got it. I got it. Okay. So what do you think will propel crypto to the next level in terms of adoption?
Yeah. Uh, I mean, this is tied in really to that last point we were making. So our thinking really, and there's some ideas that we've had all along, right? So there's some ideas, and I don't want to get, I know that we'll talk maybe about Moonbeam specifically in a little bit later, but so one of our core ideas is that there's going to be many blockchains, right? And
Mm,
so that was one of the one of the principles that like went into the formation of our project Moonbeam. That's like what led us down the path to using Substrate, which is a development framework to build our own blockchain. That's what led us down to into this Polkadot ecosystem. So there's a lot of that idea was always there, but the question is, how do we fit into that world where there's many blockchains? And I think that's
mm,
becoming quite a bit clearer. My we have this idea of connected contracts. So the idea is that if you have like a lot of blockchains, how can developers create apps that serve all of the users and like assets and combine services from all these different blockchains?
mm,
And I think that's largely an unanswered question now, like, because people are still building things largely on a chain by chain basis.
mm.
And so that's the context. And I think that the solutions that unify, right now we're in a great time of fragmentation where
Yeah.
things are getting split apart, users are getting split apart, like app deployments are split apart. So I think for me, the technologies and the protocols that I'm most interested in are ones that have this like element of unification to them. They're
Mm,
allowing people to pull together these disparate elements into like single experiences or single applications. And so that's really a large part of our focus. And I think the question is why. Why do I think that's important? I think you could create more efficient protocols is one. I think it's a way to scale. So like, by distributing your application across like multiple blockchains, that's like a recipe for scalability. But probably most importantly, it's like the user experience. So I
Yep.
think that right now, you're like taking this, like kind of trying to unify user activity across multiple chains
Yep.
will lead to devs being able to offer superior user experiences. And
Yep.
that, I mean, to me, if I were to be honest, I still think that the number one reason or the number one headwind to larger like amounts of user adoption is still user experience. I mean, I came from a Web 2 background, right, where we were building, mobile experiences. It was a cloud technology company, mobile experiences. We had a web, kind of a web experience. Um, the level of thinking and UX that we were able to provide was just vastly better than like most like Web 3 experiences. So
Yeah,
I
I
think,
totally agree, right? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
like the consumers actually, they just have to do one click, right? Okay, they can send coins across any chain. They don't have to care what is behind the tag. You see,
that's right.
so that would be the kind of ease of use, I guess, like for a layman to actually adopt crypto, right? Right now, because it's a
Yeah,
little bit too technical. I mean, like you have to download your MetaMask, have to choose different chains. What in the chain, if the chain doesn't support that chain, you have to actually do a bridge. So it's kind of complicated. I think the
yeah,
ideal state would be like a one click. I can send anything. I don't have to care about what is behind the technology. So
yeah.
yeah,
Totally with you on that. I
yeah,
fully agree.
I also agree on that. So okay, name us your 3 or 5 favorite coins.
Sure. Well, and obviously I won't name our own because
Oh,
that's
that's
another.
very good. I thought you would just say, like you name
No, no,
Kimber.
I won't. I won't. But obviously we've made like a big bet like on using this like substrate development framework, and Moonbeam, our project, is a parachain on the Polkadot like network. So I would be I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Dot as like one of the coins that we're quite bullish on Polkadot and like the Dot ecosystem in the long run because of this like technology. It's taken quite a long time to build, and it's like it's very difficult to replicate like what they've done. Um, so I think like Polkadot may be a little bit less popular like these days, but these like underlying tech fundamentals are like extremely strong. So I'm long and bullish like Polkadot, but it's we're not like we're like anti maxis, I'd say, right? So like part of the idea of Moonbeam is to connect like many different like ecosystems. And so I think the one that's probably the closest in terms of philosophy, spirit, where we're doing a lot of collaborations these days, is the Cosmos ecosystem. Cosmos also shares this vision of many blockchains. They also provide like a development framework for developers to easily like create their own blockchain, the Cosmos SDK. I'm a believer that like that ecosystem will stay and remain and be like a force like in the crypto space for foreseeable future. Um, so that's something I'm on. I would say when it comes to like interop technologies, there's a number of folks we're working with, but I'd probably single out for someone that's about to have like a token. They don't have it quite yet, but shortly is the project Axelar. That's one of our key partners, and they are exactly providing this kind of like cross chain kind of infrastructure that allows developers to unify different deployments. And it turns out that there's a number of shared collaborations that we have where projects are deployed on Moonbeam, but also using Axelar. So they're kind of a quite natural partner. I'm quite bullish, and I've known the team there for quite some time. These are like GigaBrain, kind of MIT, PhD kind of types that put this together. And then I'd probably say, just to look inwards into like our own ecosystem, right? So Moonbeam has its own ecosystem with a number of projects. There's too many for me to name, but we have. I've come to know Luke Youngblood over at Moonwell, quite well. They're providing the main kind of lending and borrowing service, like as part of the DeFi ecosystem on Moonbeam. Very like high quality team. One of the leading projects like in Moonbeam. So I'd kind of mention them as another kind of to be inward focused. That's a team I really believe in. So there's
Great.
4.
Yeah, great. I must disclaim, right? This is not financial advice to the audience. It's just
Of
our
course.
favorite coins with the tech behind it. Like because Derek knows a lot of things. So I think there'll be like great insights for the audience. Okay, cool. So let's now talk about Moonbeam. So can you tell us what Moonbeam is and what's the inspiration behind it?
Yeah. So
Be the be the
yeah,
name and also the tech.
on the name. So there is a story about the name. I mean, the story about the name is that we're not like crypto OG. So like we started the company Pure Stake that was working on Moonbeam in 2019, and so I mean, we're getting some experience like now at this point, but we're not like OGs. And so a little bit of the funny story is, we picked this name Moonbeam, we liked it, and it came from a song. So a lot of the key kind of the networks we have are named after songs, and particularly songs that like have the word moon in them. So I think this one came from there's an old song called Polka Dots and Moonbeams. It's like an old jazz standards, and so we said, okay, well that makes sense. There's like this connection to this like old song. And then, some of our other networks, Moon River is a song. We have Moon Shadow as one of our test networks, and we have all of our networks are named after songs. But we didn't understand this kind of more mimetic like thing that like there's like go to the moon and like this kind of crypto thing. We actually didn't even understand that. So then like later when we figured that out, some people were like, oh well, you can't really have a serious project that has like the word moon in it. Like people are not going to take it seriously. And so we thought, wow, geez, should we change the name, or like maybe that's bad? But in the end, we said, you know what, like let's own this. Like, well, that's okay. And then let's just go with it, even though it has the word moon in it. So that's the story about the name. In terms of what the project is, I already laid some of the groundwork that uh, the concept was, how do we fit into this world where there's going to be many blockchains? And so just to be a little bit more specific on some thoughts we have around this. So there's going to be many blockchains, but simultaneously we believe that there's going to be consolidation around different operating systems or tech stacks that developers use to create those blockchains or work with those blockchains. And so I already mentioned too. So I think for building your own blockchain, there's really like going to be consolidation around Substrate, which is the technology we've used as part of the Polkadot ecosystem, and the Cosmos SDK, which is used to create Cosmos-based chains. These frameworks are like very difficult to make. I mean, they take like 4 or 5 years of development work to make one, and you need a community and all these things around it. So I think it's extremely difficult for people to create new blockchain building frameworks, and they're very, very specialized. So I think these two frameworks are going to see the lion's share of the adoption when it comes to building new chains. And then when it comes to deploying like onto chains, I mean, you can already see that obviously Ethereum is king still, and the tech stack that you use to interact with Ethereum, the Ethereum tech stack, that is like the most widely adopted developer tool set for building the Web3 applications. I mean, by a long, long shot. And so I think we saw those two things and said, or kind of anticipated those two trends. And so we said we want to be at the intersection of two of these. So that's why we're part of Polkadot to be able to access anything that's based on Substrate. But we did an implementation of this Ethereum tech stack, right? So that developers can use all of the tools that they're used to using from Ethereum. And then plus, now we're like working with Axelar to like allow us to connect into like Cosmos, right? So this is how we're trying to be at the intersection of where we think the concentration of developer activity is going to be. But so just to explain in simpler terms what Moonbeam is, it is a smart contract platform, but the thing that's different about it, or the thing we're focused on, are these like cross-chain scenarios, right? So apps that work across like blockchains, and so we've kind of specifically built features and like optimized Moonbeam to support those kinds of scenarios. Part of that is we can use XCM, which is Polkadot's like native messaging system. Cross-chain messaging system, and then we have a number of integrations like with other cross-chain messaging providers, like Axelar. There's Nomad is another team we work with. Layer Zero is in the midst of a deployment right now, so we're kind of integrating with many of the other messaging like frameworks that are out there, so that developers have this like maximum set of options, when they're looking to build these new kinds of apps. And so for us, this cross-chain connected, the smart contracts on Moonbeam can be used to work with any asset, any user, like any service on any blockchain, regardless of where it's located. That's kind of the concept, right? That we don't want to constrain developers to just what's on Moonbeam, but you can build an app on Moonbeam that works with, that works across like different chains. And so that's the vision, and that's how we're trying to be different than other EVMs, right? Other EVMs, like you take like an Avalanche, kind of has obviously DeFi ecosystem, but they're specializing in GameFi, right? In these kind of scenarios. So I mean, our specialty is going to be in this like cross-chain connected like area.
Okay, so coming to a question that's related to your answers, right? I mean, like, so what do you think of this statement? So laymen see Moonbeam as a door in bringing Ethereum-based projects to Polkadot.
Well, so that is true. I mean, so I think that.
So why not the other round? I mean, why not Polkadot projects to Ethereum?
True. So I'll say this. This idea. I mean, Moonbeam, just by virtue of having this like EVM environment, that's accessible. And one of the first cross-chain integrations that we've delivered on Moonbeam as part of this cross-chain connected concept is this thing called XC20. So XC20 is basically a feature that allows any substrate-based asset that's like in the Polkadot ecosystem to move to Moonbeam using this XCM technology that I was describing briefly before. And then when it's on Moonbeam, it looks like an ERC20. So what that means is that you have this like EVM environment. People can deploy like even existing Solidity like based like code that might exist from Ethereum mainnet, but then they can work with Polkadot based assets like out of the box. They don't need to do anything. It looks like an ERC20. It's just an ERC20 that gets like loaded in. And so I think that even that alone, plus all the tool support, right? So for users, they're familiar with the Ethereum like tool set. So even things like MetaMask and and other things like this, even from an end user perspective. And so I think those things combined to make Moonbeam a little, I almost call it like an on ramp or kind of a the easy access point to Polkadot, right? You can use the familiar tools, you get access to the assets. It's kind of the simplest way to like access like the Polkadot ecosystem. And then our concept is once people are there, or developers are there, then a learning can begin of, oh, well, look at all the other interesting things that are there. Look at these other chains that I can like work with or integrate with. Maybe I want to use Substrate myself to go create like blockchain level functionality and link it into my Moonbeam based smart contract. So that's kind of the idea, is that Moonbeam is kind of this like easy access point, but allows like access into and the rest of the ecosystem. That's how we see
Got it.
our role.
Got it. Okay. So I see that there's this campaign called Harvest Moon. So what is this campaign about?
Yeah. So this is something that the Moonbeam Foundation is running. So the idea of Harvest Moon is this: Moonbeam, we're a young network, right? So we launched in January, so we're about 6 months old. Quite a bit newer than many of the other networks that are out there. I think the first 6 months, a lot of the story has been around bootstrapping all of the necessary infrastructure that people need. So when you can have a core blockchain, but especially for a developer-oriented one like ours, there's a lot of tools and infrastructure that you need around the core blockchain to make like a full environment, right? That is that where developers can be effective. And so a lot of that was happening in the first 6 months. So that was things like an implementation, our Etherscan like implementation, for example. So you have a block explorer. We just recently like had Chainlink like integrated their like pricing feeds, and so there's all these like tools that need to be deployed. And I think that then there was an ecosystem that needed to build. And as soon as we launched, we started having projects deploy. And I think now there's something like 250 projects, something of that, in that direction of deployed projects.
Oh,
So I
that's
think
amazing.
the Harvest Moon idea was, hey, we felt like we've gotten to a point where a lot of the basic tools are in place now. Like we've accomplished this. We've got kind of there's phase one was kind of this bootstrapping phase where we're deploying all this infrastructure, and we've kind of finished that. So we wanted to. I think the idea was to kind of more celebrate that and say, like, look, like now, like Moonbeam is like fully operational. Like we have like all of the tools that people need, and in particular, we've had quite a bit of interest on the DeFi in the DeFi sector. So that's probably where I'd say at least more than half, probably 60-70% of the projects deploying to Moonbeam are DeFi projects. And so we wanted to take a moment to say, hey, like like Moonbeam is fully operational, and look, here's this great like ecosystem, including all of these great like DeFi protocols that end users can now like interact with. And so that's kind of the name. That's kind of the point of this campaign. Our long game is around this connected contracts idea. So we see actually a lot of the DeFi infrastructure and these things as necessary elements, right? You need all these like layers at the bottom to be able to build then these cross-chain connected like applications. They rely on things like having the DeFi building blocks like present like on the chain as well.
Got it. Got it. So what do you think of the current challenges for the Polkadot ecosystem to grow, Sam? And will the adoption gap be wider, when Ethereum 2 comes in?
Well, I'd say that. So again, I'd say the Polkadot strengths are this like underlying tech is like quite good. It's been worked on for many years. It's very strong, and there is like a very strong community within Polkadot. I think there's a lot of like people that are very strong believers like in it, and a lot of those people are also part of the Moonbeam community. The challenge I see is it really is around like a further substrate like adoption. So like having more teams building parachains, because it's a network effect, right? So we're part of Polkadot. Every new parachain that comes on board that offers like a unique and valuable service, then that's a net benefit to everyone else that's on the network, right? So there's a new capability and like a new thing, and actually, especially for Moonbeam, right? Where Moonbeam, we're I'll call us probably the main like market like now, like or at least like the primary market on Polkadot. Where if you have a new project team, they have a new token, say they have other services, it's very likely that they're going to be bringing those like assets and services to Moonbeam. Because we've become a bit of a concentration point of activity, in the ecosystem. So, but I see this as like making sure there's just more and more teams that are building parachains. That's probably the key challenge, and I think the the best way to do that, and the thing that there have been a lot of investments in, there continue to need to be investments in, is making substrate like easier to use, right? So like,
Yep.
and some of it, the tech is there, but there's softer things like the
Yeah.
documentation, the
It-
DevRel, there's
It's
these
not
other
it's
softer elements
it's
of
not
like,
as common as solidity, right? I
it's
mean,
not as common as
yeah,
Solidity. And I think, and if you compare against Cosmos has been around for longer. I think that, they've probably released about a year and a half, like, earlier than Polkadot, maybe something like this. And so they're just, I think they've had a bit more time to work on some of these softer things around, like, being able to get a developer productive, like, quickly on using the framework. So those are kind of the key things for me that are the challenge. And I know that the team at Parity is working on these things. Yeah.
great. I mean, okay, thanks for all the insights. I think like there's a lot of good insights. I would actually like to end the interview with a hypothetical question. So imagine you are you switch hats, right, and you're a top um government official in the US, right?
Mhm.
So what kind of regulations will you implement?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I guess what I would say is that obviously, like, for builders in the space, this like this kind of like uncertainty or lack of clarity around like around regulations is a key challenge, right? And I think one thing that it creates a challenge, in the U.S. is that there's many different bodies, right? So there's many different regulatory agencies. I think, I mean, just like thinking out loud, what I think one thing that might be effective would be to just consolidate responsibility like into like one agency, even if that's just for a short-lived amount of time, to be able to create like some clarity, right? And then, and I think that, the net obviously like negative effect is that, without better clarity, a lot of project teams choose to like build elsewhere, right? So they go to like other, I think you're from Singapore, right? That's like one of these like locations that's has kind of signaled that it's let's call it friendly to like crypto projects, right? And so I do think the U.S. has like a long history of being leading like in tech, and so I do think that this is an issue. That would be, I think, one of the ideas I'd have would be like, is there some way that we can consolidate responsibility like into like some smaller set of hands, like even if it's for some short amount of time, to be able to more effectively create clarity, and then maybe there's a transition path to to somewhere else.
I got it. So it's like they set up like a body that supervise over crypto, right? That has the direct responsibility and authority in a way, right?
Yeah, that's an idea, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. But so apart from that, right? But like regulation specific, you just like probably you just want like more more clarity. Would you want like some like they say some regulations that protect the retail, or like the public, or like or towards crypto investing, or this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think that a lot of these like regulations exist are there for good reason, to provide like appropriate protection. So I don't see, I see as crypto projects become mainstream, obviously they're, I think, I mean, my belief is that most like financial services will be based on crypto of some form like in the future. So obviously there'll need to be adaptations of the existing regulatory frameworks to accommodate like for that idea.
Got it. Thank you very much, Derek, and thanks for having time with us. Like it's very early in the morning for you, so thank you very much. Thanks.
No problem. Thanks again for having me.
Yep. Thank you.